Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Dr. Muhammad Sarfraz. I am Associate Professor of Medicine. Today we will discuss about hyperthyroidism. Hyperthyroidism caused by increased thyroid hormones from the thyroid glands and their associated clinical features arising from elevated circulating level of thyroid hormones. The most common causes are Graves' disease, multinodular goiter, and autonomously functioning thyroid nodules, toxic adenoma. These are the three most common causes of thyrotoxicosis or hyperthyroidism. So other causes are thyroiditis, decurvins or postpartum thyroiditis, iodide-induced thyrotoxicosis like drugs amiotron and contrast containing iodine, extrathyroidal source, for example factitious thyrotoxicosis, struma ovary, and then the pituitary causes TSH secreting pituitary adenoma, choriocarcinoma, and identiform moles are other causes of TSH induced thyrotoxicosis. Then follicular carcinoma and metastasis can also cause thyrotoxicosis as mets goes into thyroid glands, and follicular carcinoma of thyroid gland by itself can cause thyrotoxicosis. Thyroid nodules. The risk factor for malignancy in a single solitary thyroid nodules includes age less than 20 or more than 45 years, occur more in male if the size of nodule is more than 4 centimeter, or rapid increase in size, hard in consistency, fixed to adjacent structures, lymph node metastasis, or vocal cord paralysis. These are the risk factors. If these are present, then there is high chance of malignancy. Thyroid malignancy. These are classified into follicular carcinoma, papillary carcinoma, medullary carcinoma, and anaplastic carcinoma, pruritus, ankle swelling, alopecia, amenorrhea, oligomenorrhea, infertility, and spontaneous abortions. If we consider signs, weight loss, tremors, pulmonary edema, sinus tachycardia, lid retractions, lid lagging, goiter with bruit, atrial fibrillations, heart failure, systolic hypertension, increased pulse pressures, hyperreflexia, ill-sustained clonus, and proximal myopathy. So a special consideration to the amiotron-induced hyperthyroidism. Amiotron can cause thyrotoxicosis by two mechanisms, either by causing inflammation of the thyroid gland, that is known as thyroiditis. In this case, to start with inflammation, the stored thyroid hormones are released and there is increased level of thyroid hormones in the circulation. So symptom of thyrotoxicosis occur. In the late stages, if the inflammation goes on, may cause fibrosis and ultimately hypothyroidism occur. But patient may have euthyroid as well, but in the start of process inflammation, when stored hormones are released, there are symptoms of thyrotoxicosis. The second mechanism by which amiotron causes thyrotoxicosis is Jod-Basedow phenomenon. This is due to the fact that in iodine deficiency area, if there is hypothyroidism and multiple nodules have been formed due to hypertrophy of the thyroid glands in response to the increased TSH but there is deficiency of iodine, so hormones levels are not normalized. But when you give amiodarone in such patients, because amiodarone is rich in iodine, then they take up iodine rapidly and form increased number of thyroid hormones because there is already hyperplasia present. So thyrotoxicosis occurs by this way, and this phenomena is known as Jod-Basedow phenomena. Then, as we discussed, that the three causes of thyrotoxicosis are most common, in which one of them is Graves' disease. And Graves' disease is characterized by symptoms of thyrotoxicosis, orbitopathy, dermopathy, goiter. In this disease, the TSH receptors antibodies are formed, which are stimulating in nature. They stimulate the thyroid hormones, and increased thyroid hormone synthesis occur. In this way, thyrotoxicosis occur. As far as Graves' ophthalmopathy is concerned, which is also called orbitopathy, the eye disease often associated with Graves' thyroid disease is referred to as Graves' ophthalmopathy. This condition is immunologically mediated. Within the orbit and the dermis, there is cytokine-mediated proliferation of fibroblasts which secrete hydrophilic glycosaminoglycans. The resulting increase in interstitial fluid content combined with the chronic inflammatory cells infiltrate causes marked swelling and ultimately fibrosis of extraocular muscles and rise in retrobulbar pressures. The eye is displaced forward, causing proptosis and exophthalmos, and in severe cases there is optic nerve compression and vision impairment occur. Now, regarding treatment options, we have three main options for the management of thyrotoxicosis. Number one option is drug therapy, in which thionamides including carbimazole, methimazole, propyl thiouracil. Second, we have radioiodine therapy, and third option we have is surgery. So let us first discuss thionamides therapy, which include carbimazole, methimazole, and propyl thiouracil. By giving drugs, there is chances of permanent remissions, but in Graves' disease, 30% of the patients, in 30% of patient remission occurs. But in case of toxic adenoma and toxic multinodular goiter, remission not occur. We have to continue medications in these patients. Only in Graves' disease, 30% of the patient go into the remission, and in remaining 70% of patients with Graves' disease, we have to continue with thionamides. As far as disadvantages are concerned, there may be rash, arthralgia, GI upset in the form of nausea, vomiting, agranulocytosis, vasculitis like lupus-like syndrome, hepatitis, especially with propyl thiouracil. So these are the side effects of thionamides therapy. Usually carbimazole is nowadays not used frequently. Mostly methimazole and propyl thiouracil are used. Propyl thiouracil is saved in pregnancy and breastfeeding mothers having thyrotoxicosis. The second option we have is radioiodine, in which radioactive iodine is given to the patient. Usually a single dose is given. This radioactive iodine is taken by the thyroid glands because no other tissue in the body takes up iodine. So only radiation affects on thyroid gland, no other body tissues is affected by this. So thyroid gland take up this radioactive iodine, and this radioactive iodine destroy the thyroid glands. So it also causes a permanent resolution of hyperthyroidism, but the disadvantage is that it not only destroy the abnormal tissues, it also destroy the normal tissue. So there is chances of permanent hypothyroidism, and we have to give lifelong thyroid hormone replacement to this patient. Radioiodine once considered contraindicated in children because of risk of carcinoma of the thyroid and other carcinoma. But the research shows that the chances of carcinoma are very much less with radioactive iodine, and one can give it to the children as well. But there are certain parameters which should be followed, because the children less than 5 years should not receive radioactive iodine, and the children more than 5 years, 5 to 10 years of age, there is certain limits of radioactivity. If that is achieved, then you can give radioactive iodine to the children of this age. Otherwise, if the desired limit, if the radioactivity is above the desired limit, then it is contraindicated. And more than 10 years of age children, it can be given. So radioactive iodine can be given in children more than 10 years without any specific measures for radioactivity. And pregnant women should not receive radioactive iodine. It is harmful. It can cross placenta, causing destruction of the fetus thyroid gland. So it is not recommended in pregnancy. Also, it is not recommended in lactating women. The third is surgery. Surgery provides rapid permanent cure of hyperthyroidism, but it also causes permanent hypothyroidism as a disadvantage. The risk of hypoparathyroidism can also there, and also there is recurrent laryngeal nerve damage as a disadvantage. So antithyroid drugs, 3 drugs usually used: carbimazole, methimazole, propyl thiouracil. The main mechanism of these drugs is to reduce the synthesis of new thyroid hormones by inhibiting the iodination of tyrosine. Because iodination of tyrosine is the second step in the formation of thyroid hormone. The first step was oxidation of iodide into iodine. The second step is iodination of tyrosine, and monoiodotyrosine is formed, but it inhibits the iodination of tyrosine, thereby subsequently the reduction of thyroid hormones. Carbimazole also has immunosuppressive actions, leading to reduction in serum TSH receptor antibodies concentration. So it's very effective in Graves' disease in which TSH receptor antibodies are high. So it not only reduces the thyroid hormones productions, but also cause the decreased serum TSH receptor antibodies. If the patient is mothers of breastfeeding or lactating women, propyl thiouracil is suitable, and propyl and methimazole and carbimazole are contraindicated in these patients. And also propyl thiouracil is suitable in pregnancy. Beta blockers can also be used to decrease the symptoms like tremors, palpitations, because in thyrotoxicosis there is increased number of adrenergic receptors, and increased beta adrenergic activity is seen in thyrotoxic patient. So it decreases many symptoms of hyperthyroidism because it blocks conversion of T4 to T3. Therefore, and also It decreases the beta adrenergic activity. By both these mechanisms, it ameliorates many symptoms of hyperthyroidism. The dose is usually starting dose is 25 to 50 milligram per day, and then increase to the 160 milligram per day, and maximum dose is 200 milligram per deciliter. If the heart rate is above 90 beats per minute, you can give up to 200 milligram per day to decrease the heart rate. Iodinated contrast agents and iodine can also be used. The oral radiocontrast agents like sodium iodate and hyponic acid are potent inhibitors of peripheral conversion of T4 to T3. They are not acting on the thyroid as radioactive iodines. They only act in peripheral circulations. They inhibit peripheral conversions of T4 to T3 by acting on deiodinase enzymes. When given in combination with methimazole at dose of 500 to 1000 mg per day, they can rapidly ameliorate severe hypothyroidism and can also be used to prepare a hyperthyroid patients for early surgery. Thyrotoxicosis in pregnancy. There are different treatment regimens in pregnancy because we cannot use carbimazole, methimazole in pregnancy. They are teratogenic. We can use propyl thiouracil because carbimazole might be associated with the skin defects in the child as well, known as aplasia cutis. In order to avoid fetal hypothyroidism and goiter, it is important to use the smallest dose of antithyroid drugs, optimally less than 150 mg per day, that will maintain maternal and presumably fetal free T4, T3 and TSH within normal range. If the patient is already taking antithyroid drugs for hyperthyroidism before pregnancy, then you should change. If she is taking carbimazole before pregnancy, we should change into propyl thiouracil. Then surgical treatment. What are the indications for operations? If simple diffuse goiter, it can be an indication for cosmetic reasons, or if it causing pressure symptoms like pressure on the trachea causing dyspnea, pressure on the esophagus causing dysphagia. So if these pressure symptoms are present, or if pressure symptoms are not present but only cosmetic reasons, one can go into surgical procedure. The second indication, nodular goiter. Because nodular goiter, additional reasons in plus to the cosmetic reasons and pressure symptoms, additional reason is that it may undergo toxicity and may undergo into the malignant change. They have a potential into the malignant change. Number 3, solitary nodules. There are more chances of malignancy, so should be operated. The number 4 indications, primary thyrotoxicosis. Like Graves' disease, if there is a lack of response to the medical treatment, a relapse after apparent cure, or toxicity of the drugs is unacceptable, large size of the gland, or retrosternal extension, these are the indications for surgery. Goiter is another indication for surgery. So pre-operative treatment, we should assess vocal cord assessment. We should do vocal cord assessment. Medical treatment with antithyroid drugs for cases of thyrotoxicosis. Lugol's iodine 0.3 milliliter 3 times daily 10 days prior to surgery, and propranolol if needed to control heart rate. Surgical procedures we have is subtotal thyroidectomy, hemithyroidectomy, in which lobectomy. We do total thyroidectomy and excision of the isthmus. Complication of thyroidectomy, there may be hemorrhage, respiratory obstructions, recurrent laryngeal nerve paralysis, hypoparathyroidism, hypothyroidism, and recurrent thyrotoxicosis. You can see a figure of this is a picture of a lady with multinodular goiter. There are certain signs in case of thyrotoxicosis. Mobius sign, it is a poor convergence. You can see in these pictures there is a poor convergence. There is problem of complete adduction in both eyes. Ballard signs, in this sign there is restriction of one or more extraocular muscles. This is due to the edema and fibrosis. All four recti are involved, but mainly inferior rectus and medial rectus are involved. You can see in these pictures that the medial rectus and the inferior rectus are involved. Restrictive myopathy is another feature of thyrotoxicosis. There is restrictive movements of the eye. You can see in the top left elevation defects, at the top right abduction defects, bottom left depression defects, and bottom right adduction defects. Upper lid retractions, Dalrymple sign, it's present in more than 90% cases. You can see in these pictures there is upper lid retractions and signs of eyelid retractions. You can see in these pictures there is bilateral lid retractions, no associated proptosis, then bilateral lid retractions with bilateral proptosis, and unilateral lid retractions with unilateral proptosis, and lid lag in down gaze position. Lid lag on down gaze, von Graefe signs, you can see in these pictures. Then glabellar furrows and eyelid edema apparent in these pictures. Stilling signs, incomplete and infrequent blinkings. The frequency of blinking is decreased in thyrotoxicosis. Geoffroy signs, absent creases in the forehead on superior gaze. And Ross sign, eyelid fullness. Then corneal signs. You can see here the ulcerations of cornea and perforations of the cornea. This is the Graefe signs. So assessment of severity as far as eye signs are concerned. Class 0, no symptom or signs. Class 1, only signs, no symptom. And Class 2, soft tissue involvement of the eyes. In Class 3, proptosis. Class 4, extraocular muscle involvement. And Class 5, corneal involvement. Class 6, sight loss, optic nerve involvement occur in this grade. Thanks.